TikTok and on Instagram with so many people interested about the actual house that our garden surrounds. So I thought, as it was such a miserable and wet day, it stopped raining for just a moment, that I would show you around North Lodge and introduce you to our dear little house. Now, the house behind me is the original part of the cottage. It's now 326 years old and dates back to around 1699 to 1700. There's no real actual date of when the house was first built. It was actually built as the first gatehouse, or the northern gatehouse, of Burgate Manor, which is just over behind me, around 3/4 of a mile to my left. That particular house had two gatehouses, one north and one south. The South Lodge, unfortunately, now has fallen, but North Lodge remains here on the outskirts of Fordingbridge, marking the border between Fordingbridge and Burgate. Once upon a time, the gates that are actually just off to my right, I will pan round and flip the camera so you can see. Not a very nice view. I've actually clad the gates now because we're on a busy road, but you can see the original estate gates and the original pillars that were here. These gates are over 280 years old, and all I've done is mount wood to the gates to give us a little bit of privacy. So the original part of the house is just here. This is the original part of the house here. This is actually made of cob and a mixture of cob and brickwork. For those of you that don't know what cob is a whole sort of mixture of anything from soil and clay mixed with sticks and horsehair. The actual second part of the house, this part here, this was added in the 1950s. This is our front door. This is now the lobby or the hallway. Behind that, the kitchen and the bathroom that was then added in the 1970s. As you can see, we are a mixed media house. So we are thatch and cob, the roof made of barley straw, recently rethatched about 3 years ago. And we have what we call a Dorset ridge, which is the stepped decorative ridge along the top, which we have adorned on the new part of the house that we added, or the addition as we call it, in 2021. And on the east side of the house, we have a cockerel, again marking the different parts of the house that we created. But this is the outside of the house. I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour outside so you can gain a little bit of an orientation before we step inside. The wooden clad part of the building here, this is what we added. We call it our addition. This makes up our new lounge, and we added this completing building work in 2021, adorned with our frolicking squirrels on the roof there. A huge glass apex window added here as well, which is really, really nice. This particular window, over 6.5 square meters of glass added to the house, which floods of what would have been normally a dark cottage with masses of natural light. Right, so I'll go turn around so you can actually see. This is our sunken patio, which obviously features very highly in my garden tours, built by myself, along with all the retaining stonework patio laid by myself as well. You can see there we've marked the different styles of building by cladding the extension, or the addition as we call it, in cedar wood, which is going now a lovely silver grey colour. Built by a local tradesman, the extension, or the addition as we call it, is all made from locally sourced timber. Every single piece of timber, apart from the pegs that hold it together, was sourced very, very close by, from under 10 miles away from a local forest. They were not only felled, but also then dried and then milled in the same place as well. This room is absolutely spectacular. We adore this space, and I hope you really enjoy it too. I say, this is our lounge. It replaced an original conservatory. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see me for a few moments while I shut the back door. When we first bought the house, it had been in the same family for just over 70 years, falling into a huge amount of disrepair. The house needed a huge amount of work to it. So although you see a very, very polished house now, it was an absolute hellhole when we moved in. It was absolutely disgusting. They were an awful lot of stuff in the house. That's all I'm going to say. Very, very dirty. There was a huge amount of stuff in here. You couldn't really get in any of the rooms. There was a conservatory here that basically occupied the space between what used to be our original back door. It came off of just here and made its way round. The sofa would have just about fitted into the conservatory. A really horrible lean-to plastic conservatory with a sloping roof that took on huge amounts of water. This room was used as a dining room for some time until we could afford to do this extension. And yeah, really not a very nice space at all. Didn't have any heating, didn't have any electricity in it. Was really, really not very pleasant. But I say all of the timbers in this particular room were sourced locally, milled and dried locally, and put together by a local tradesman. We absolutely adore this apps space. It's glorious. Underfloor heating in here because obviously we've got this enormous vault over 16 feet high, floor to ceiling, with, as I say, this enormous glass window marking the south end of the house, letting in about 6.5 square meters of light. It's argon filled and reflective, so we not only get a huge amount of light, but it doesn't actually take on a huge amount of heat either, which we were really, really pleased by. One of the favourite details of this particular room, I love these, all of the exposed beams and timbers. All of these make up the framework of the actual addition itself, which actually stands completely independently from the original house. The house, obviously made up of cob, is not particularly stable, as traditionally as most people would call it. So we actually opted to make this building completely freestanding. It stands all on its own. The only piece of machined timber is the one just above my head, called the glulam beam, which takes the weight of the roof itself, but everything else stands completely independently on its own. I was talking about the features that I particularly love in this room, and these little sort of slit-like defence windows are one of them. The builder insisted on placing a pair of double timbers on either side of the door to bear the weight of the large window above, and I actually had the idea of coming up with these really thin little windows. Most people think these are a little bit pointless, but I absolutely love the depth and the light that comes through these, especially in the evenings. Above the lounge, you may have actually worked out there is a small space, and we're going to climb up the ladder now. I actually helped our builder lift the glulam beam, which is this one that runs along the top, which is a sandwiched manufactured piece of wood to bear the weight of the roof. I actually lifted that beam into place with him one afternoon after work, and when I climbed up his ladder to get to this particular point, I realised that there was a massive amount of space up here. And much we wanted the vault, as we call it, with the ceiling, which was actually designed and really brought about by the fact we have had to keep the original roof line of the house exactly as it is. This particular room was designed around a Christmas tree, and I know most of you will find that a really bizarre thing to say, but we absolutely adore Christmas in this household. And I wanted a big, big Christmas tree wherever possible. When we were buying a house, we wanted original period features, we wanted high ceilings, and we wanted a private plot away where we couldn't be seen from people. This house ticked all the briefs apart from with the high ceilings. Now, for a cottage, this particular house does have particularly high ceilings. They're over 8'6" high. Most ceilings in cottages of this age are normally around 6 foot, 6'6". So we are lucky, but I wanted a really big Christmas tree up here. But you can see there is an awful lot of space up here in what we call the reading nook. And I'll just turn the camera around so you can have a little bit of a look, and you can actually see the beautiful timbers that have been used up here. Painting this was really, really hard work. I painted it all myself, but yeah, getting up here and painting it. The Christmas tree replaces the orange chair just down there at Christmas, and we have a bit of a shuffle around. But yes, this particular little space behind me is our little reading nook. I will turn the camera so you can see it properly. It's a bit difficult. I've got to be careful that I don't fall off it. But you can see, whoops, we've gone all funny. Okay, we've gone upside down. Right, so yeah, hollowed into the original roof space is the bookshelves just here. Don't know what's happening. Bear with me a second while we. There we go. There we go. That's better. Is original hollowed back into the roof space is the bookshelves just here. We've got light switches up here and power if you ever want to charge your phone. I quite often come up here and read and look out over the garden. This is a really nice space to look at storms that come in across, filling this window. We've got a really lovely sky through the window at night time, but you can see a really, really nice vantage point of the lounge. Right, I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to attempt to go back down the ladder with one hand, so please bear with me and hopefully I don't fall down. Right, down we go. That's the difficult bit, that's the dismount done. Down the ladder, and we're going into the original part of the house. This is an original room. This room Was one of the most challenging to actually renovate when we bought the house, and one of the worst conditions. This particular room is now our dining room. It was the original lounge when we moved in, but you can see we've got one door which leads through into the lobby, one into our normal, our large bedroom, our primary bedroom, spare bedroom, and then through into what used to be the conservatory, which is now the lounge. So this room originally had loads and loads of doors in it. Placing furniture in this room was an absolute nightmare. Placing a TV in here was really, really hard work. So we decided when we added the addition that we were going to turn this room into a dining room. It all had to be tanked, it had to be battened, it had to be replasterboarded and then re-skimmed. The ceiling had to be reworked. This is an original horsehair ceiling, had to be repaired. And my husband wanted to paint the fifth wall, as he calls it, bright red. I'm still not particularly keen on the colour, but he absolutely loves it. And then we added the very, very luxurious and expensive wallpaper from William Morris. This is a pattern called Cobalt and Thyme, or Seaweed, Cobalt and Thyme. It's really, really heavy, very arts and crafts. As you can see, we've got an awful lot of bits and bobs. The whole house filled with second-hand furniture. We don't own anything new. The only new items we have are the sofa and chairs in the dining room. Absolutely everything else in the house is second-hand, thrifted, bought from charity shops or got out of skips, and then repainted or repurposed by myself. Yeah, we absolutely adore this room. It's a lovely stark contrast from the bright, warm, and inviting lounge. This is a really dark and intimate space to be able to eat in during the evenings, and really nicely close it up and light the candles in here. It's very, very pleasant. Incidentally, a little bit of information for you. The light fitting was actually paid for by a commission from our last house being published in Period Living magazine. So we brought that with us from our last cottage. Through into our primary bedroom. This was, again, a really terribly disgusting room when we moved into the house. Just above this area here, there was a huge bulge in the internal cob wall, and plaster and stuff used to shower down me when I slept. And it took us a good 18 months, nearly 2 years to really get the courage up together to get this area dealt with. And there was actually a squirrel dray in the wall here. A squirrel had got in behind the stink pipe in the bathroom, underneath the thatch, and built a nest in this wall, which I had to repair. At the time, I wasn't as bold DIY wise as I am now, but I was actually very concerned that this particular wall would collapse in on me. We had an unspoken rule in this house. If someone got up to use the toilet in the night, they didn't flush the toilet. Otherwise, I would be covered. If I was in bed, I would be covered in plaster and falling dust, because all that was keeping it in place was actually just the wallpaper for a very long time. Once again, this room finished with a William Morris print, which we really like. And a really, really lovely find. This particular picture coveted by so many people that visit the house. This was actually a charity shop find, Kingston Market House. I found this in a charity shop in Eastleigh in Hampshire, paid just £40 for that. So about 7 foot long. It's really quite large. But again, everything in this room, second-hand, thrifted, skip delved, all sorts of stuff, and purchased from all sorts of second-hand shops. The clock, incidentally, that's hanging on the little nook just there was actually in a cupboard when we bought the house. It doesn't work, but we thought it was a nice decorative item. So yeah, that's a nice little trinket left over from the people before. Back out of the primary bedroom into the dining room, we'll have a quick look at our little guest bedroom. This one, incidentally, needs a little bit of work still. I need to strip the wallpaper in here and repair the walls, but it has been painted and redone a couple of times. This is our pink room. Everything very kitsch in here, very 50s. Once again, all charity shopped, all salvaged. Some reduced pictures in here. You can see my rose obsession goes well beyond just roses in the garden and actually goes through to pictures within the house as well. Collections of plates on the walls. These bedrooms both faced due east, so it's really, really nice We get a lot of morning light. And those of you that have looked at the garden tours, I often talk about the donut path that runs around the outside of the cottage. And that's what we're looking at through these windows, not only just through this bedroom, but also the primary bedroom as well. We look directly out into the garden. So it's really, really nice, especially in early spring when everything starts to come up with the morning sun coming through the bedroom windows. It's really quite pleasant. This room, one of the nicest things we like in this particular room is this old 50s butler's press. This one was a really, really good find from a house clearance. I paid about £35 for this. Absolutely love it. A massive amount of storage in that as well. So that contains an awful lot of Christmas crockery because we absolutely adore Christmas in this household. Out through the dining room, we're heading to what they call very grandly the lobby, but very small space into the kitchen. Let's pop some lights on. We're really lucky, although the kitchen's not massive. This was actually added in the 1950s. So the original external wall would have been this one here, which is why we now have these wonderful 1950s style built-in cupboards, which contain all sorts of bits and pieces. We've got 4 of those sunken in. They were actually built by the father of the gentleman we bought the house from. He sunk those into the walls. Our kitchen is very, very vibrant and very colourful. Very much like ourselves, we're full of colour, plain shaker kitchen units with oak worktops, and then very, very bright decorative sort of Scandinavian style tiles. This was a real nice project for myself. I actually had to fill in the kitchen door. We had a second door out into the garden, which sometimes I do miss. It would have been nice to be able to keep that as a feature, but without filling in that door and turning it into a window, we wouldn't have had a place in the kitchen for a dishwasher, which, as far as I'm concerned, was a hard no. Floor space in here is quite large. The last people to live in the house actually used to have a table and chairs in here, but we added our large dresser that we brought with us from our last house, which once again, huge amount of storage space in that one. View out from the kitchen sink out onto the spring lawn. And for those of you that follow along with the garden tour, you'll recognise the wildflower meadow behind the picket fence then, and what we call the pavilion, which is the wooden structure just there. Only little room left is actually the bathroom. Not very exciting in here. Added in the 1970s, we added an enormous bath, had the whole thing retiled. The sink originally was actually on the other wall, which made it really, really very difficult. Oh, it made it really very difficult. I don't know why someone put the sink there because you couldn't actually get out of the bath. Anyway, we had the bath and the shower removed, all of a new suite, and had these lovely metro style tiles added. We kept as a feature, most people think this is a little strange, we kept as a feature the original 1970s pull above cistern toilets, which most people are quite puzzled by. A lot of younger people haven't seen these before, but we still have the original pull chain toilet. Eventually, if we stay in the house, we will actually have a new one of these made. I'll have a cast iron one done with the letters NL embossed into it as it's forged. But yeah, the kitchen, as we go back out, funny enough, the bathroom behind me contains not only the boiler, but also the washing machine. But yeah, that's the kitchen. But we'll go back through into the dining room. Dining room is just there. Funny enough, this lovely decorative piece today on the dining table, one of the pieces of media I've been working on today. But you can see that stark contrast between the two rooms. Really, really heavy wallpaper and print in here, very dark. If I turn the lights out, there we go, that beautiful natural light flooding in from what we call the addition. We had the timbers mocked in here from the two. When we had this room done, the timbers that were used in the lounge, we had all of the skirting boards in this room, replaced all the window architraves and all the door linings, all replaced with the same timber. And that was mocked through into the primary bedroom, which is our bedroom just here. All the door frames were added and removed. All the floors were replaced and re-leveled. And again, once again, the timbers were mocked through into the rooms to try and bring some cohesion and just a nice look to the whole thing. We really like the fact the doorway here is really large, and our builder was very clever and produced us a nice little shelf above here as well. These timbers, incidentally, are absolutely enormous. These ones are over 8 inches square. They really, really are quite big. Some nice features in this particular room, designed by my husband, were the bar. The original house was jack shaped. So imagine a square with the corners cut out of each side. So we were ending up with a really sort of strange little area in this side of the lounge, which Mark, my husband, designed a bar to go in. Our builder, very, very good with wood, and produced us a sliding bar with complete with lights, which is really, really lovely. Nice area for mixing drinks when we entertain. And over in the underneath the book nook, which I say a big, big feature of this particular room, I think this room would have been very, very overpowering and almost a little bit empty with this without this hayloft feature. Somebody asking on the live, how old is the house? The original part of the house dating back to 1700 or 1699. So somewhere in the region of 326 years old now. But yeah, this room would have been a little bit overpowering if we didn't have the hayloft or the little reading nook above. On the other side, we were then left with a position where we didn't know how to house the TV. And we're not one of some of these people that like a TV to dominate a room. So we had this alcove space as part of the original house, and we had our builder mock it up very much like a ingle nook fireplace. These timbers are all, well, they're all decorative, although they're enormous. The large one across the top, measuring nearly 12 inches in thickness and about 6 inches thick. All of these doweled and pegged together, mortise and tenon jointed together to create a shelved area where our TV went into. Obviously, at the moment, decorated for fall or Halloween, whichever you want to call it. But yeah, this room, very, very personal to us, a really, really nice touch. And we feel really, really adds a huge amount to the house. It was really changed the house and the feel of the layout. Obviously, just the two of us, but a really wonderful space for entertaining, moving from kitchen into dining, through into relaxation in the evening. And if you wanted to, straight out onto our south facing Italian terrace patio. You can see if I just step up to the doors, Ethel's having a little sleep. Hello, sweetheart. You can see the two large Italian olives out on the patio there, and obviously our large water tank water feature, which I talk about an awful lot. I hope you have enjoyed a little sneaky peek into the house here at North Lodge and a little bit of the history about the actual cottage. I will see you all again very soon. Take good care now. Bye bye.